What is up, everybody? Let me turn this down here. What is up, everybody? This is Anthony with VR 365. Welcome to another episode of our show. I believe this is episode 142, but I don't know why. Wait, is it 142 or 143? Well, anyway, I have 142 on the screen here, so I'm going to go ahead and say it is episode 142, and today is April 5th. It is 2019. It is now 3 p.m. We are an hour later than normal. I did delay the show a little bit. Apologies for that. Last minute stuff popping off. But let's go ahead and get into it. So let's see, where are we going to start things off today? Well, before we get into all of the discussion and everything, I did want to go ahead and thank some of our Patreon supporters. And so let me go ahead and see here. Who do I have today? So today I did want to thank Lee Tobin. Lee Tobin, thank you so very much for your support on Patreon. Absolutely huge, incredible. And you know what? Lee Tobin, I think, supported the Patreon a long time ago. And just now I finally got to Lee Tobin. Like, I am going so very slowly but surely through all the Patreon supporters. Eventually, see, what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to like hammer people with like Patreon. So I kind of wanted to just like celebrate a Patreon supporter like every other day or every couple of days. I didn't want it to be overboard, you know what I mean? But then it was like a long time I didn't do it, or it's been a lot of days in between it. So anyway, Lee Tobin, finally you're on the screen there. And to anybody else that has supported my Patreon, I am going to get to everybody, absolutely no question about it. So definitely as far as that goes. And I am so incredibly thankful for all of the support on Patreon, PayPal, anywhere else. It has been incredible. I absolutely appreciate it. It's absolutely awesome. So thank you so much for all the support, guys. And I'm actually, in a little bit, I will be going to a different scene here to kind of thank some of our recent PayPal donators, because I've actually had quite a flurry of activity on PayPal very recently. It's been actually pretty incredible. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's get into the number one story of the day. And the number one story of the day, actually, I'll go ahead and switch off of Dance Central here. I don't know why I put that on for a quick second. But the number one story of the day is... Oh, no, I got screwed. I forgot to convert this to 1080p. Okay, let's see. How do I do this? I got to... It's been a long time since I've had to do this. Been a real long time. There you go. All of a sudden, it's 1080p, and it fits the screen perfectly. So, yeah, so this happened yesterday, ladies and gentlebots, and I gotta tell you, last night I went on my Discord. I went to the Discord server for VR 365, and I was looking at, I don't know what I was looking at, but I happened to be bouncing around the Discord server there, and I saw these people talking about Mario and Zelda in VR, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I didn't see no news anywhere. And then I went to Upload VR. No story was there at this time. This was last night, right? I went to Road to VR. There was no story there. I went to all the big subreddits. There were no stories there. And I'm like, what's going on? Is this real? Is this like a April Fool's kind of thing? Is this some kind of like what is the deal here? Then I went to IGN, which I normally don't go to IGN, right? I went to IGN, and IGN had a story on this. And then I went to like Twitter, or I went to like Nintendo's website, and then I went to Nintendo's Twitter thing, and then that's where I saw it. And this video here, there's actually sound and everything. I don't know if you can hear this. We can listen to it for a second. So there's actually sound and stuff, but So then I saw the Twitter thing, and they had a little video. And so basically, Mario Odyssey, there are going to be a number of little areas that you're going to be able to experience kind of bite-sized mini games in Mario Odyssey on the Nintendo Switch that will be enabled in VR, I believe on April 25th. I believe this is coming on April 25th. But the really big news, and this is ridiculous news in my opinion, the entire game of Breath of the Wild will be playable in VR. Okay, and so there's a number of, options. You go to options and Toy-Con VR goggles, yeah, turn it on. And then basically the whole game is playable in VR. Okay, and certainly we're very concerned about this because Breath of the Wild did not run flawlessly on a regular Nintendo Switch as is. How the hell are they going to render it to each individual eye? And isn't it gonna, like, what is it gonna run at 10 frames a second? Because like regular Breath of the Wild is like 30 frames a second, right? On the Nintendo Switch. And now you're running it to both eyes. How is this possible? But wow, this is shockers of shockers. And I wrote, like, my title is Breath of the Wild VR. Are you freaking kidding me? Because you know what, guys? Something weird is going on in our reality right now. Like, what's going on? Did they just activate the Large Hadron Collider and they like turned it up to freaking 12 on the dial of the Large Hadron Collider? Because something weird is going on. What is going on, folks? I'm starting to wonder, seriously, like this is like an episode from the Twilight Zone or something. I know Twilight Zone recently came back, so, you know, serendipity, right? But I'm starting to wonder, Anthony, maybe 2 weeks ago, I stepped out in front of a bus and I got hit by a bus and I'm dead. I think I'm dead right now, guys. I'm dead because all the things that are happening in the VR gaming industry, it's a little bit ridiculous, folks. It's a little bit ridiculous. Like, what is going on right now? Okay, so, you know, rewind back a little bit. Remember, we got No Man's Sky VR. We've got Iron Man VR. We've got the Valve Index. And now you're telling me we got freaking Breath of the Wild in VR? Like, what is going on? Did I really get hit by a bus and I'm like in Jacob's Ladder and like weird shit is going on? I don't understand what's going on, folks. Is it the Large Hadron Collider? Did we, like, Planet X crashed into the Earth? Like, what is going on here? Something weird is going on. And so at this point in time, I got to tell you, I'm expecting Grand Theft Auto 5 in VR. That's going to be announced on Tuesday. I mean, it's got to happen, right? And then BioShock VR is going to be announced next Friday. And then a couple weeks after that, Red Dead Redemption 2 VR is going to be announced. And then like another week after that, the Halo Master Chief Collection on PC is going to be in VR. Like, what is going on? This is bizarro land. Is anybody else think something weird is... I mean, yeah, you got the Rift S, you got the Oculus Quest, you got all these games that we've seen, like new games that have been coming out, like Dance Central, Dead and Buried 2, all kinds of new announcements. No Man's Sky, I mean, get the heck out of here. And then freaking Zelda in VR, Zelda and Mario in VR. Like, we were joking about this. We were joking about this not that long ago when we were talking about Nintendo Labo VR. And we basically said, look, this is just a bunch of mini games. You know, this is just a bunch of mini games. This is kind of a novelty. You're going to hold it up to your head. I mean, when I was talking about Labo, I should have went back and, got a clip from that because I was like, we're not getting Zelda in VR. We're not getting, this is not like serious. Like Nintendo isn't being serious about VR. And then, so now we have this reality. Okay, so back to reality. I got hit by a bus, Jacob's Ladder. You know, I'm walking down the street, a car drives by, and people's heads are bouncing. Has anybody seen Jacob's Ladder? That is a trippy ass movie. I mean, that is a trippy ass movie. And I feel like I might be in Jacob's Ladder. But okay, let's come back to reality now. Let's get back to reality, folks. And what is Nintendo doing? What is going on here? I don't know what they're doing. This is the weirdest thing I could possibly imagine. I don't understand. What is Nintendo, like, what is their strategy here? This is truly bizarre. First of all, Nintendo Labo in and of itself was bizarre. That was bizarre enough, but we kind of wrote the whole thing off because we didn't write the whole thing off, but we kind of were like, oh, okay, Nintendo's kind of experimenting, you know, so they're going to experiment with VR and they're going to do all these weird little eclectic things with Nintendo Labo. And Nintendo Labo is kind of like a side thing. And so they're kind of screwing around with VR. They're kind of dipping their toes in VR, but it's all these mini games. Nothing, you know, no big deal. This is not earth-shattering news. And so that kind of was logical, but now they add this on top of it, and they say on April 25th, you're going to be able to play the entire game of Breath of the Wild in VR. Do you guys know I've never held a Switch in my hand. I don't own a Switch. I've never held a Switch in my hand. I have seen one. I've seen a Nintendo Switch. I've seen people playing Nintendo Switches. Roy Schwartz says, Anthony's had some shrooms. I kind of feel like I've had shrooms. If this whole week has been a dream, I don't get it. This is crazy. This is bonkers. And I'm kind of surprised because, like, people in chat were like, wait a minute, this is Nintendo. Like, who cares? This is Nintendo in VR. No, dude, this is a big deal, bro. We don't know, like, is it going to run at 10 frames a second or all of those kinds of things? Those questions are still out there, but let's just assume for the sake of argument, that this, some wizardry, some magic has taken place and it's going to look pretty good. It's going to look like Breath of the Wild in VR. It's going to look halfway decent. It's going to look pretty good. Don't you have to go buy a Switch? Like, don't I have to go buy a Switch? Don't I have to play Breath of the Wild in VR, the entire thing? Like, not that I didn't have interest in Breath of the Wild. It's just I was not going to go down the Switch road. You know, Switch is one of the few Nintendo consoles I've passed on. I passed on the Wii U as well. The last Nintendo console I got was the Nintendo Wii. And I didn't play that very much either. It was kind of a novelty in the beginning, but then kind of didn't really use that very much. Haven't been playing much of the flat stuff, but man, Mario and Zelda in VR, this is kind of crazy. This is a shocker of shockers. And so the question might be, so Anthony, are you going to buy a Nintendo Switch? Wow. This month of April, man. Okay, I wasn't planning on buying a Nintendo Switch. I'm going to be like, this was the farthest thing from my mind. I'm thinking about Oculus Quest. I'm thinking about HP Reverb. I'm thinking about the Valve Index. The last thing on my mind is buying a Nintendo Switch. But last night when I first got this information, I was like, damn, I'm going to have to go buy a Nintendo Switch. Who would have ever thought that? I'm going to go buy a Nintendo Switch. But you know what? I've kind of calmed down now. And I think what I'm going to do is my nephew has a Nintendo Switch and he comes over here, every once in a while. You know, he's the same age as my oldest son. And so they they play Fortnite and all kinds of Destiny and all kinds of stuff like that. And they do different little things together. And he's brought his Nintendo Switch over. I've seen them play like 4-player Mario Kart on our big TV in the living room. And they have it hooked up and they each have little Joy-Cons. And there's 4 of them sitting around. He has a Nintendo Switch. So my plan at this point is I'm going to call him and say, hey man, I'll buy this Nintendo Labo thing. Can you bring your Switch over for like a weekend and we can do this whole Labo thing and we can check all this crap out so I can kind of report on it? But I mean, I got to see all this stuff. I was almost considering skipping the Labo thing or just kind of hearing what other people said about Labo. But now that like Zelda, Mario in VR, like I've got to see this. I've got to see this just to know what the hell is going on here. And I'm still wondering about Nintendo. What are they thinking? Like, what is the strategy? I really wish there was an interview with someone at Nintendo, like Tested. Where's Tested when you need him? Okay, they did a nice thing of projections today. It was about HP Reverb. They talked about Asgard's Wrath, and what else? They talked, Shadow Point. Yeah, I think so. They talked about Shadow Point, they talked about Asgard's Wrath, and they talked about the HP Reverb. And I actually listened to that entire podcast today while I was at work. I didn't know that it was brand new. I was just like randomly doing searches, and I was like, I haven't seen this one yet. Turns out, I guess it was brand new today. So I listened to that. But where's Tested when you need him? Because I need them to go talk to somebody at Nintendo. Sit down with somebody at Nintendo and, hold the microphone over to them and say, so what exactly are you doing with VR here? And then just see what comes out of their pie hole. Because I'm super curious, like every little word that would come out of their mouth, whoever would be the spokesman that would be talking to them, yeah, Controller Brain says Nintendo doesn't do interviews. Normally they don't. It's very rare. Like Nintendo is one of the most secretive companies on planet Earth. In fact, they're very similar to Valve in that way. And they're both located, well, at least Nintendo of America is located up there near Valve. And Valve, of course, has a lot of wonderful things to say about how Miyamoto and Nintendo will make new hardware together as they're making the software, and that the software will actually influence the hardware, which is something Valve wanted to emulate with I was about to say Nintendo Index, the Nintendo Index, yeah. But Valve kind of wanted to emulate that for the Valve Index, and they don't do a lot of interviews. They don't. Now, I know, of course, at E3, they have they'll have their Nintendo Directs at E3, and then they do like the Treehouse thing, right? For like the entire week or whatever, they do the Treehouse thing, and then with the Treehouse, aren't they kind of doing interviews during like the Treehouse thing? Maybe, but that's a long ways away. It's a long ways to wait. But I'm trying to figure out what are they doing here, man? Because I could think about this from a lot of different angles. I kind of joked about this with Labo. When we first found out about Labo VR, a very pessimistic, cynical, skeptical side of me looked at the entire thing, and you know what I thought as I was like, you know what, Nintendo's not interested in VR. In fact, if anything, they hate VR. And so I started thinking about the Nintendo Labo thing, and I thought, you know what? Are they deliberately trying to kill VR? Or not kill VR, but are they basically trying to kind of do some crappy VR things so that everybody tries it? They're like, oh, this is garbage. And then they can say, see, we told you, we tried VR. Nobody liked it. So we're not going to worry about VR anymore. I mean, my pessimistic, cynical, skeptical side was thinking that was actually a legitimate possibility. All right. But I don't know. It's like they're doing too much. They're doing too much to be trying to like wag the dog type of a situation where they're going to try to ruin VR and make it crappy so that no one ever wants VR. I don't think that's what's going on here. But then again, it's not like they're really getting behind VR because it's kind of this half-assed implementation. Like, for example, Breath of the Wild, for example. Okay, Breath of the Wild, an incredible game. I mean, people rant and rave about that game. They give it 10 out of 10s. One of the best video games of all time. Blah, 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 right? Well, like, wouldn't you... Like, I would want to play the entire game in VR, but the Labo is not, it's not designed, like it doesn't have the straps. Like you can't just put it on, like you're supposed to hold it up to your face, and then how do you hold it up to your face and you also play Breath of the Wild at the same time? So I imagine there's going to be some companies that are going to be scrambling to create some kind of special thing that you put the Labo, like VR covers, or I don't know who's going to do it, but somebody's got to create a special thing where when you have the finished Labo belt, then you put that into some kind of sleeve thing that then has proper straps to put all around your head, and then bam, you're now playing freaking Zelda Breath of the Wild in VR. This is so bizarre. I still don't know what to think about it. Okay, let's see what people in chat are talking about. I am so confused. I seriously want to know, did the Large Hadron Collider, what is going on, folks? Mandela effects, UFOs, chemtrails. It's getting crazy out there. Okay, let's see what some people are talking about here. Noah says Zelda, Mario, and Astrobot. Kevgret says, funny to see all the Nintendo fanboys geek out for this, yet they talk so much smack about PlayStation VR. Controller Brain, of course, said Nintendo don't do interviews. Great Tantrum said, I bought a Switch because Super Mario Maker 2 is coming. Chris says, Breath of the Wild on a cardboard headset in 720p or less and 30 frames sounds like fun. Sounds like I'm going to be barfing. Major chunks. Chunky barf soup is coming to a theater near you. Okay, Chris Gould says a step back to Google Cardboard if you ask me, which you didn't. Be very interesting to see what Nintendo does next. They sure can squeeze good experiences from low tech. R. Gambo says Nintendo can never be counted out. Great Tantrum says Nintendo fans be like, I hate high def. Later it gets high def. I love high def. I hate VR. Later it gets Labo VR. I love VR. Yeah, that is true. That is the Nintendex. Lethal Weasel VR, the Nintendex. Yeah, Valve and Nintendo are together again. See, what you guys don't know about the Valve Index is they got a secret partnership with Nintendo. And Breath of the Wild is included with every... Dude, how freaking crazy would that be? But based on the stuff that has been going on over the last couple of weeks, not that crazy. Not that crazy. Okay, Hussein X tries to return it back to reality with a little bit of HP Reverb talk. He says, HP Reverb, I hope it goes on sale below $300. I might pick it up in the future. I'm still looking for an ultimate cinematic movie experience inside of VR cinema. Yeah, you know, they were talking about that today on the tested breakdown of HP Reverb, and they were saying how, you know, all these aggressive sales that we've had on Windows mixed reality headsets, and mostly those sales were with the crappy units, but at the same time, we've seen some pretty good sales with Samsung Odyssey. You know, that's gone on sale pretty dramatically, $299 a couple of times. So HP Reverb, what I would say about HP Reverb is I wouldn't expect that anytime in the near term. It's just coming out, and they kind of designed HP Reverb for enterprise more so than anything else. But because they're doing it anyways, might as well put it out there if people want to buy it. I don't think we're going to get major discounts on HP Reverb anytime soon. Great Tantrum says, is the Switch more powerful than the Oculus Go? Actually, technically, yes. I do believe, yeah, the processor in the Nintendo Switch is considerably more powerful than the Oculus Go, isn't it? I think the processor in the Nintendo Switch is more powerful than a Snapdragon 835, than the processor in the Oculus Quest. Although, wait a minute, I might be talking out of my butt right there, but I think so. So yeah, this is kind of crazy. It is crazy, crazy, crazy. Okay, Fuzzy Dragon says HP Reverb is dead to me until Windows Mixed Reality adds more than only 2 sensors. And Dankless Quaid says, I mean, Breath of the Wild can be emulated, so it might one day be possible to play the VR mode with like a legitimate VR headset. Yeah, there's that. And Controller Brain says you just use your chin on the joystick. Like you hold it up to your head like this, and you just kind of move your chin around or something like that. Yeah, and Edergan Slave says, yeah, X1 smokes an 821, and it's targeting 720p. Yeah, it has an NVIDIA X1, right? Is in there, and I think that's even better than I think it's even better than a Snapdragon 835. Like, I think Magic Leap is using an X2, right? And the Nintendo Switch is using an X1. X1 is actually relatively decent, has some decent power. Controller Brain is also talking about Dolphin VR. I tried that a long time ago, and my problem with, like, Dolphin VR, I got it into Metroid Prime, and I had it working in Metroid Prime, and for like 5 minutes there, I was like, oh shit, Metroid Prime, it's working in VR, this is amazing. But then I moved a couple of feet, and it was like screwed up, and then I went back to my computer. It's one of those things, like, this was a long time ago. But the Dolphin, it's like you got to be right by your computer, and you got to change this, and then you put the headset on. It's like, oh no, that's not going to work. Okay, I got to change that, and then oh, that's not going to work. I got to change that. So Dolphin kind of pissed me off, and I basically said F it on the Dolphin. And Main Fan is bringing up an interesting new point. Yeah, there is supposed to be a more advanced Nintendo Switch that is coming, possibly a bigger screen, possibly a 1080p screen, possibly a better processing power as well. There is a new Switch that is coming. There's also a Switch that's coming that you cannot remove the Joy-Cons off the side of it, and it's kind of almost like a Nintendo 2DS. So they do have some new things that are coming, and yeah, I was listening to I think I was listening to like a flat gaming podcast, and they were talking about these new Switches and whether or not they're necessary. And in the back of my mind, I was starting to think about VR. You know, I was starting to think about Labo VR and stuff. But it was kind of like just, I wonder if VR has anything to do with it. And then now when we hear about this, yeah, maybe VR really does have something to do with it. This is crazy. This is shocking. This is unbelievable. I still am kind of amazed by this. Although at the same time, like, people are not going that ape shit about this around like VR gaming in general. And I think it's because people don't, like, people are like, well, this is the Switch and it's this Labo thing. It's not like a real thing. Like, why doesn't Nintendo have a real VR thing? Why are they doing this weird thing? Why don't they give us something that we can work with here? Oh, you know what? I got to fix my size of the trailers now. Hold on a second here. Yeah, this is all screwed up. Okay, let's fix the trailer now that the Labo thing screwed me up. And there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into our next story. But you know what I am going to show you guys? I did create something today. I've been meaning to do this for a while. And so here we are. This is a new scene here. This is what I used for my Skype guests. But over in the other window, you're going to see some names popping up. And these are my recent PayPal donators. People that have been throwing a little bit of money my way, which has been incredible. Not because I just want money. I mean, obviously, everybody wants money. People want money to be thrown their way. That's always incredible. But it's especially incredible because, honestly, I would love to buy a Reverb. I really would. And I kind of have this idea. Oh, man, oh, wait. No, his name barely fit in there. I think I made the names a little bit too big. Something's a little bit off with the dimensions there. But, yeah, these are people that threw out some PayPal donations. Much love, recent PayPal supporters. I really, truly appreciate the support there. And one of the things I've been thinking about in regards to like a lot of this new hardware and stuff is the idea of buying this new hardware knowing that I'm probably going to have to sell it, but that I'm kind of renting it. I'm renting it so that I can understand what it is. I can understand what it does. I can understand how good it is. and all those sorts of things. So those are things that I'm thinking about in regards to buying new hardware. And these PayPal donations are incredible because they'll actually, like the money that is coming in, some people have been donating like $1. Some people have donated $2. Some people have donated $5. A couple of people have donated like $20. A few people have donated $10. And all this money is starting to add up. And I'm going to throw this money at all these different pieces of hardware. And so it's super interesting. It's super exciting. So anyway, that's good news there. But what else did I want to get into? Okay, well, actually, our second story of the day is Happy Vive Day, everybody. Today is the 3-year anniversary of the HTC Vive. Yes, it's been 3 years. Today is the birthday of the HTC Vive, April 5th, 2019. And I can remember back to April 5th, 2016, when the Vive originally launched. Now, I got to admit, I do have a Vive box. It's back there. You might be able to barely see it. You could probably barely see the Vive box that's back there. And one of the things that I have to admit in regards to the Vive box, or in regards to the Vive, is I pre-ordered it in March of 2016, or maybe it was late February of 2016. I pre-ordered it, but I did not get my Vive on April 5th. I was still waiting 3 years ago. Like, I got my Vive like April 24th or something, somewhere around then. Like, the Vive had been available for a number of weeks, but I still can remember back to when I first did get my HTC Vive, and oh my God, that was such a magical, special time. Because you know what? I mean, I've told this story a million times already, but I was like a hardcore retro game guy. I was just playing retro games, man. I wasn't even playing Xbox One games and PlayStation 4 games. I had those systems, but I really wasn't using them. My PayPal thing is only showing like 3 or 4 names, but I added like 17 names to it, or I added a bunch more names to it, but it's only showing a couple. I think what'll happen is next episode, it'll have all those names in there. So we'll go ahead and switch back to our regular scene. But once again, thank you to anybody and everybody out there that has donated via PayPal. That is super awesome. I super appreciate it. And that money is absolutely going to stuff like Oculus Quest, Valve Index, HP Reverb, maybe even Nintendo Labo. I mean, that money is going to all of those things. So that's super cool. I super appreciate it. But yeah, talking about like it's the 3-year anniversary of the Vive. Has Vive done anything special today? Like, was there any, like, I know there was some like Viveport thing that was going on, but still no news about the HTC Vive Cosmos. You think it would be a perfect time to maybe have a big blowout of HTC Vive Cosmos news, but as far as I know, no HTC Vive Cosmos news. But yeah, thinking about back to the original days when I first got my Vive, it was such an exciting thing because it was a shot in the dark. It was a straight up shot in the dark for me to order the Vive. Like, it was completely out of my normal purview. Like, it was like so out there, but I was so excited by room scale. It was room scale that did it for me, man. I was totally enraptured by the idea of trying to create the biggest possible space I could possibly get away with for room scale. That was my dream. Because I was thinking, you know what? I have this big room. I have a big open space right here. And like everybody on the Vive subreddit was like, well, I got this much room. And then another guy was like, well, I got this much room. And they're like, 2 by 2 meters or whatever. And I'm like, dude, I've got like 4 meters by 4 meters, damn near 5 meters by 5 meters. I've got this huge giant space that I can create this awesome room scale thing. And so I remember like preparing for my Vive, or like when I first got my Vive, I actually took some of that blue painter's tape and I made outlines with blue painter's tape for my whole entire play area, like trying to get it as big as possible and like trying to get my play area all as far as I could get it. And I was thinking like there would be all these games that did all this crazy stuff with room scale. And we really didn't get that very much. But in my early days with the Vive, I would actually I was physically walking around. You know, I would try to walk around as much as possible. I would like teleport, and then I would walk back a little bit and walk forward. I was super into the idea of moving around and physically doing things. And now what do? I stand in a single spot. I use my freaking thumb pad and I barely move. I've been ruined. I've been ruined by the freaking thumb pad and like snap turning. And you know what? Actually, this is a great transition. This is a great transition to another topic that I wanted to get into here. Thumbstick and snap turning. So another topic we can talk about very quickly here is about the Valve games. You know, there's 3 Valve games that are being worked on, right? And somebody had a very interesting post. I think it may have been on the Vive subreddit. And the post was, will Valve games have teleport only? And that's a really good question. Will the Valve games have teleport only? Because way back at that time, Valve was very adamant. About, no, VR is room scale, man. VR is room scale. That's the power of VR. The power of VR is room scale. Get a bigger room, brah. You know, freaking clear out space. Make it happen. It's all about room scale. Back at that time, Valve was all about room scale. They weren't about smooth locomotion and snap turning and all of that. Because they were like, okay, it's going to be room scale. Now, we'll give you teleportation in case you've got a tiny ass room, but we really want you to just get a bigger room and make it bigger and walk around. That was Valve's MO back at that time. And so they've been making these games for years. They've been working on these games for years and years. And these games may have been designed with a different kind of mindset from where we are now, with smooth locomotion everywhere, with snap turning everywhere. I mean, you kind of go back and you think about the lab and think about robot repair in the lab. That could be part of a much bigger Portal VR game. Like that little snippet could be a tiny vertical slice of a Portal VR game. And that was designed to walk around. Like you were designed to kind of walk around in there, not to like be teleporting everywhere or using smooth locomotion and all of that. So it's an interesting question, but most people, they were responding to this and they were saying, no, these games will not be teleport only. They understand that people use smooth locomotion, snap turning, all of that. So the Valve games will support modern day stuff. But that was kind of back in the days, man. Back in the days, it was a room scale thing. It was super interesting. Those were the good old days. Ye good old days. Absolutely. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's see here. What did I want to get into now? Well, we can do the Oculus Daily Deal really quick. And so let's go ahead and bounce over here, and Wrench is the Oculus Daily Deal today. This is going for $17.99. It's a 10% discount, normally $20. Wrench is a very new title, hasn't been around that long. You got a little over 8 hours left in this deal. Let's see, when did Wrench come out? It's saying March 13th, 2019. Oh, that's when it came to the Oculus store. Yeah, this was a weird thing. This was a really weird thing. How Wrench had a demo that was on Oculus. It was one of the first demos we've ever seen on Oculus. And then Wrench was available on Steam, I believe last December. And then it just came to the Oculus store just recently, just this last March. It came to the Oculus store. I thought it was on the Oculus store the whole time. I had no idea that it wasn't on the Oculus store. I thought that was kind of abnormal there. But yeah, Wrench is the daily deal. So that is out there as far as our daily deal. Okay, now, another topic I wanted to get into, actually, let's go back to the Webby browser and get into this. So let me go ahead and dial this up. And so there is this topic. I've seen some people talking about this. Road to VR has a story about this. It is called Pressure Mounts for Xbox Missing VR Strategy as PlayStation VR revenue nears $2 billion. Okay, so this is an editorial. Ben Lang, VR nowhere in sight on Xbox. And you know what? I haven't read this story, so I'm not sure what kind of arguments he's making here. But an update an update to this story was like article updated with Sony's latest official sales figures. PlayStation VR has now hit 4.2 million. Okay, so this is actually an older story. Oh, is this an older story? And they just kind of updated it because of this? But I don't know that there's any pressure on Xbox, to be completely honest with you. I don't think Xbox has any pressure on them. That so many flat people still don't give an F about VR. In fact, just today, I was listening to Giant Bomb, which used to be the Giant Bombcast, which used to be my favorite podcast, bar none. Okay? Back in the days, it was my favorite podcast. When I was a flat gamer, I looked forward to Giant Bomb. It was so awesome. It was like 2.5 hours, 3 hours, these marathon long episodes, and they would get me through like half of my workday. I used to love Giant Bomb. And I was listening to today's episode because I wanted to see, well, not today's episode, but whatever their newest episode is, because I was going to try to see, did they talk about the Valve Index? Did they talk about maybe No Man's Sky? And, what stuff, do they even care about VR? And they barely talked about it. It was just not, flat gamers just don't care, man. And then also DLC with Jeff Kanata and Christian Spicer. I forget the guest that they had on this week, but they had, the guy's name was Anthony, but I forget what his last name was. It was Anthony something something. He was a guest on the DLC episode, and they were talking about a bunch of VR stories, but they asked this guy, well, what do you think about VR? And he's basically like I don't care about VR. I'm just not into VR. Like, there's a lot of people that just don't give an F about VR. And as exciting as it is right now for us, with all this craziness that's going on, No Man's Sky, Iron Man, Valve Index, Rift S, Oculus Quest, Rec Room on Quest, Apex Construct on Quest, everything is happening. It's incredible. It's amazing. Dance Central, Dead and Buried 2, yada, yada, yada. I mean, all this crazy stuff that's going on, right? Despite all of that, there's people out there that just don't give a damn about VR, and it's amazing to me. And that's why I think Xbox, they've dodged a bullet. It's not a big issue for them. They don't have people banging on their doors saying, dude, where's VR? Now, you can make the argument here that Sony's making money with VR, and Sony has this beachhead property with VR, and that Xbox is eventually going to have to recognize this shit. I mean, we got Nintendo. Nintendo, for Christ's sakes, has more VR investment than Microsoft does. Like, what kind of bizarro world is that? At least on the Xbox side of things. So it is kind of crazy. But Xbox, they've basically dodged a gigantic bullet, and they've gotten away with it. They have not suffered. Suffer the little children. They haven't suffered. Xbox has not suffered because of this. Now, eventually, they are going to suffer. They are going to suffer from the standpoint that Sony has this big-ass library that they've created now for PlayStation VR. I mean, Sony keeps adding more and more games. And Xbox is kind of in a effed up scenario anyway, because if Xbox, like if all of a sudden Xbox was like, you know what, we're finally going to hop aboard the VR train. We made a Windows Mixed Reality 2.0 headset. It's a brand new headset. It's got a lot of new capabilities, and it's going to connect right to the Xbox. It's been designed for the Xbox. It'll also be available on PC. It has next level Windows Mixed Reality tracking, vastly improved Windows Mixed Reality tracking. It's got AR pass-through, all this other crap. Okay, and they're going to bring it to Xbox. Like, even if they were to decide to do that, they're so far behind. They're so far behind this giant library of games that Sony has already that it's almost like I could imagine they kind of look at what Sony's already done and they think, we can't compete with this. We can't compete with this. They've got a giant library of VR games. They're going to continue to make more VR games. Honestly, I think their strategy is going to be, let's see how long we can avoid having any VR product at all, and let's see if we can get away with it. I think that's basically their strategy. Let's see how long we can dodge this bullet. It hasn't really bit us in the ass yet. Maybe we can continue to dodge it. Because remember, Microsoft is going to get into the whole streaming thing. Google got into the whole Stadia thing. You don't think Microsoft wants to do everything Google's doing? Hell yeah, they do. And I guarantee you, when Sundar Pichai was up there on stage talking about Google Stadia, Microsoft is scrambling like, they're doing the shit we wanted to do. They freaking got in front of us. Microsoft has always had ambitions of doing the whole streaming thing. Like, they were very interested in OnLive back in those days because they thought OnLive might have been a threat. Of course, they knew it was like 10 years too early. You know who's very similar to OnLive, actually, if you think about it? What company do you guys think is similar to OnLive? Let's see the first person in chat that figures this out. What company is similar to OnLive, okay? From the standpoint that they're in a market 10 years too early. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. Let's go ahead and Google search OnLive so you guys can remember what this was. There used to be this company called OnLive. Let's see, OnLive, streaming games, OnLive. There was a company called OnLive. And I guess they're dead by now, right? Yeah, so here it is, OnLive, games on demand. Okay, so here's our question of the day, folks. The question of the day is, what company reminds you of OnLive from a standpoint of being 10 years too early? And I'm waiting on chat. No, a company that's 10 years too early, like they've arrived too early. I can't believe you guys have not answered this question yet. Okay, here's OnLive. This is OnLive. They had their own little control. Magic Leap, yay! Yay, Conrad Lawrence. Conrad Lawrence, come on down. Yeah, Conrad Lawrence, Magic Leap. I do believe, I hate to say it because Noah's here as well and I feel bad, but I do believe Magic Leap, I don't know about 10 years too early, but probably 6 years too early. So yeah, kind of crazy, man. Kind of crazy. But Airman929565 says an AR company. What's that name again? Can't remember it. What's that name? But yeah, okay. Let's see what some people are talking about here. Oh, actually, we can go back to our standard scene. And let me see here. I'm going to try to find some old videos I have with like Microsoft and VR. I might have some... let me see where I can find my old videos. Let's see. Hold on one second, folks. Xbox and VR. Because I've done dumb little things in the past about what is Xbox going to do with VR? We've done this before. And I was just trying to see if I had my little Xbox. Damn it, now I'm not finding it. Anytime I need to find something out of normal and I'm not ready for it, it's always a disaster. So I am not finding any of my old Xbox crap. Damn it. Or I don't know. Yeah. Don't know where it is. So looking through here, and I've just killed the show. I've just killed the show. Well, I know what I did find. I did find my old Everybody's Golf trailer. I was wondering where that was. So yeah, you guys want to see a trailer for Everybody's Golf on PlayStation VR coming out on May 21st? Here's your trailer, guys. This is the only thing we have for Everybody's Golf. Like, we don't have a legitimate trailer for this. This was from, I believe, Tokyo Game Show, and it was like somebody recorded this off of their freaking stage where they're showing Everybody's Golf. I was looking for my little Xbox thing because I wanted to look in chat and see what do people think about this whole Xbox thing. Okay, so Great Tantrum says, Xbox, do something, LOL. Great Tantrum says, No Man's Sky will be great in VR. Oh, wait, sorry, Xbox One owners. VR Mania has to go to bed. Good night, VR Mania. Dankless Quaid. Dankless Quaid says, Microsoft can barely make flat games, let alone VR games. Ouch. Ouch. And Show Game says, Xbox will follow. Paradise Decay says, Xbox so missed the boat. Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like my theory on Xbox right now is they're so far behind that it's like they're just going to stay that way. Like, basically, who thought that Xbox would be the final company to be dragged kicking and screaming into VR? They're really going to be the final company to get dragged into it because Nintendo's already doing it. Like, you would think Xbox would be like they would go to Phil Spencer, say, Phil Spencer, Breath of the Wild is in VR. Should we maybe start a VR thing right now? And Phil Spencer would be like, really? Breath of the Wild is going to be in VR? Wow, that's interesting. Nah, we'll pass. We're going to pass on VR. They're going to pass on VR right now. So yeah, I don't think Xbox has any plans for VR. Okay, so anyway, I got a little bit distracted there. Okay, let's see. What else did I want to get into? Oh, well, you know what? There is a game I could talk about briefly here. There's a new game called ARMS. And VR Roundtable, we received a key for this game. Let me go to my Webby browser here, and I'll show you the game I'm talking about. Okay, so there's this game called ARMS, A-R-M-Z, ARMS VR, and the developer of the game is Televisor. You can see that the release date is March 28th, so this has only been available for a little while here, and you got 3 user reviews. It's going for $15. Well, I played this game last night, and it's interesting. I've got some stuff to say about this game really quick, but why don't we go ahead and check out the trailer for it real quick. So let's go ahead and go back to our standard scene over here. I'm going to pump the volume on Everybody's Golf, and we're going to check out the trailer for ARMS, and then I can talk about playing that a little bit. So let's go ahead and do this. Okay, so that is ARMS. And you know what? So here's the thing. VR Roundtable and also VR 365, at times we get developers that will just email us codes, just random codes. Like I don't think we contacted these guys and tried to get a code. And random developers will send us codes. And a lot of times the games are pretty crappy. And sometimes the games, you look at the store page and you're like, do I even want to like download this? Do I even want to go through the process of even trying to play this? And so I didn't know what this game's arms was, but I knew that VR Roundtable, I knew we got a key for it. And I was like, well, let me check out this arms game. Let me just see what it is. And I looked at the store page and I was looking at it and I was like, oh, it's kind of a shooter. It's kind of a wave shooter. Well, you know, it's probably something I can get into real quickly and I can screw around with it real quickly. And so I thought, sure, why not try it? Well, I downloaded this and tried it last night. And I was really impressed. I was like, wow, this is way better than I could have ever imagined. But it also has a lot of issues. It has a lot of problems. So I'm not giving it a straight up endorsement. Not yet. I got to play it more. I do believe that it needs some polish. Like a lot of things, like I was stuck in certain parts where I just had to quit out of the game because it wasn't letting me advance. It was asking me to do certain things and then it just wouldn't do it. And I don't know if it was because I'm on an Oculus Rift and maybe this is kind of designed for an HTC Vive and it had some problems. But the idea here is, so you're seeing these guns, but what you're not seeing is you've got these big giant mechanical arms, like these huge giant arms. Like, do you guys remember Spider-Man 2? Spider-Man 2 and Doc Ock. Remember how Doc Ock would have these arms that were like, and these arms would come way out? That's kind of what you got. You got like these huge arms that come out, and one of them has a gun attached to it. The other one has your hand, but you can also have a gun. And so you're like on this swivel platform, and you can't move around. There's no teleportation. There's no smooth locomotion. You are locked in place. So you got cement shoes on, but it is 360. You can swivel all around, and then basically waves of enemies come at you. And it's like these robots, a lot of them look like they just jumped out of Robo Recall. Like a lot of these robots jump up at you and they're kind of in slow motion coming at you. And you can take your gun and you can just smack the shit out of them. And you can kind of smack them in slow motion and knock them like over your wall. And the graphics are pretty good, but also bad. And I know, like, yeah, the graphics are really good and also bad. No, the graphics at times are like, whoa, these are very impressive graphics. But then in another way, they almost remind me of games from the mid-90s that would have these pre-rendered backdrops and then would have animating stuff happening in front of the pre-rendered backdrops, like in the mid to late 90s. Do you guys remember those games that would be like that? I can't, it would have a pre-rendered backdrop, kind of like a Resident Evil, and then it would have like polygonal characters running around in front of the pre-rendered backdrops. And some of the background areas of this game kind of made it seem like that, but the graphics were pretty freaking good. The gameplay was good. Unfortunately, there were a lot of little things that happened that didn't allow me to move on anymore. And it was like, if this game had polish, this would be really good. Like, this is not a bad game, but I need to play more of this. And hopefully, the next time I get into it, like I was going through a tutorial and I couldn't even finish the tutorial. Because at one point it says, grab a missile, like basically grab it with your harpoon. And I was pressing every button on the Oculus Rift controllers. Nothing did anything. And I was like, okay, what do I do now? I guess I just have to quit out of this and start over. I quit out of the game. I loaded it back up. I thought it was maybe just a bug that happened to rear its ugly head right at that time. Got back into the same thing. Got to the same part of that tutorial. I don't know. Maybe it's not designed for Oculus. Actually, let's take a look at the Steam page. What does it say on the Steam page? So going back here, here's the Webby browser. It says HTC Vive and Oculus Rift. Okay, so here's the story. Welcome to a world where technology has sealed our fate and finally led to the World War. Those of us who made it are now living in ruined cities behind steel gates that separate the cities from one another and from deadly creatures roaming the wastelands. The only thing that stands between us and them are the remotely controlled war machines called arms. But no machine, no matter how powerful, would be of any use without you, its operator. ARMS VR is a hellishly dynamic wave shooter that allows you to become one with huge, heavily armed battle mech. Your goal? To guard the city walls against constant attacks from horrifying human-machine hybrids. Be sure they'll use all their skills, weapons, and won't hesitate to sacrifice their life when needed, as unlike any living being, they're not driven by a self-preservation instinct, but pure will to kill. Okay, so yeah, this is ARMS, man. I've never heard of this game. This game came out of nowhere as far as I'm concerned. I was not tracking this game. I never heard of this game. I didn't know anything about this game. But I'll tell you what, the graphics are impressive. And when it was working, when the game was not like having game-breaking bugs that wouldn't allow me to continue, it was actually very interesting. And I thought it was a great idea. Like, it's an interesting concept. And also when you're swiveling around, okay, see this screenshot? See this like meter thing up here? When you're swiveling around, it's like, it's kind of going around like that. And then also the menus, like just when you're in this game, just in the menus of this game, like when you're, start game, it is so slick. It is done really well. If only they didn't have any game-breaking bugs. But I got to get back into this. I got to try this again because this was looking like a hidden gem. Like, this is like a hidden gem if I can get over the problems that it has. Because the idea, being in VR, like you have these gigantic arms and you feel like you have these gigantic arms. And so these robots are jumping up and you're just smacking them out of the way, or you're grabbing them and throwing them out of the way or whatever. And it's kind of, it makes you feel powerful. It feels pretty good. So that's ARMS VR, maybe worth a look. So yeah, that's that one. Okay, well, I've gone through pretty much all the stuff that I had. So now what we can do is we can take a quick look at the major news sites real quick. So we can bounce back over to Upload VR. Let's give this a quick refresh and just see what the number one stories of the day are. And so, yeah, I did see this earlier today. I was at work and I checked this story out. Luckily, Upload VR is one of the few websites that's not blocked at my job. So I can actually look at this on a break or whatever. But they're talking about, in this deal, they talk about how you set up your Oculus boundaries. And one of the coolest parts about this, I really like this. Okay, so it shows that you just you paint your boundaries as you're in VR. You basically have a little laser pointer that kind of shoots out into your world, and you paint your boundaries. But here's what I really like. This second part right here, if you accidentally made your boundary too small, you can paint over it and make it bigger. It shows you with this little animation right here. See, it's like painting over it, and then bam, just added some more space. And then also like calibrating your floor height. I remember this. See this little grid that they put on the floor? When I was at GDC doing, what do you call it? I was at GDC and I was doing the Oculus Quest. I actually saw that floor. I saw it. And they didn't do it right. Like the people that were setting it up for me, because those little indicators, they were hovering about 5 inches off the ground. This is when I was playing Beat Saber. Like they didn't have the floor set properly. Luckily, it didn't bother me, but those things were floating about 5 inches off the ground. The person did not take the actual controller and actually touch the ground to get the floor set properly. But the good news is that all this process should work easier and better on Rift S. We also call it the Oculus Lenovo. And then the other thing that's going on is you have this little introduction experience, kind of like what they do, where it's like, these are your touch controllers, aim it at these bubbles and shoot them or whatever, There's a new version of that, so that is there. Some people are finding some new stuff, like they're finding it already, which does tend to suggest that Rift S is very imminent. Rift S is coming very soon. We've also seen, we've had some stories. I haven't commented on these stories about like Best Buy employees that are like setting up, they're setting up a Quest thing on April 30th, supposedly. Like somebody Apparently, this is like leaked information, somebody that works at Best Buy. And then the other thing that we've heard about Best Buy is people have been going to Best Buys. They're completely sold out, but I guess they've told people that they're going to get some new VR headsets in about 2 weeks. So what does that mean? I don't know. I mean, we kind of seem to guess that it is the Rift S. Okay, there's also been a lot of talk about IPD. Like this IPD thing, I'm surprised. I really am. I'm surprised that this IPD thing has these kinds of legs. Like I thought we would talk about IPD for maybe a day or two and it would have blown away and everybody would have forgotten it and we'd be back to operation as normal and everybody would have forgot about IPD. But IPD has caught in fire. Like people are really into this IPD thing. And so what they're talking about here is one of the things that came out from PAX East is that Facebook/Oculus has basically said that there is a particular range that is best if you have a Rift S. And the range is right here. It's this little blue area right here between 61.5 millimeters to 65.5 millimeters. So if you're in this area right here, you're going to get the best experience. And everybody that's kind of outside of that, you're still going to be able to use it. You know, so if you have an IPD all the way up to like 74 or wait, oh no, that's Quest. That's different. I think they go between, what do they go between, like 58 and 72? Yeah. So if you have an IPD of 58 or an IPD of 72, you can still use the Rift S. The downside is you're really going to be heavily leaning on the software adjustment, and the software adjustment does not correct all problems. And then, of course, like what I talked about yesterday when we had the Cass and Cherry video, I mentioned that one of the things about this IPD thing is it's something that takes longer to, like, you're not going to know in a day. You're not going to know in like a 15-minute demo. I don't even know if you're going to know in one day just how that IPD, the lack of a legitimate IPD is going to affect you. I think you kind of have to own a product for a couple of weeks and then you'll kind of have a better idea. But yeah, this IPD thing has not died, which is kind of crazy that it's still out there for people. We did hear that Falcon Age is going to offer a combat free mode. Which I guess that's cool as well. Space Junkies is getting move support, and I was kind of surprised about this because I thought, like, I was thinking the reason that Space Junkies didn't have move support is because it's a 360-degree game. Like, you know, it's all around you. And I thought maybe DualShock would be better for that. But I guess what they're going to do is they're going to add snap turning. And then they're also going to add move support. So you could do moves and snap turning and then be in Space Junkies. And then you have your guns are actually, you know, you have actual tracking for your guns and you're moving your guns around and stuff. But the downside is you're going to have to snap turn at the same time. And so you're going to be at a real disadvantage, I think, going up against PC VR players that just turn their physical bodies. They don't have to worry about snap turning. But on PSVR, unless they get the Iron Man magic that does 360-degree tracking, unless they somehow get that, you know, you're going to have to use snap turning to move all around with your moves. But it's still good that they're going to have that option, so that's good. Let's see, Road to VR, what are they talking about? Oh, yeah, so 3D rudder. So this did get delayed. It's delayed until June, and the price is $120. And I'm still kind of surprised that so many people, like, there's a lot of people that are really into this 3D rudder thing. And, you know, I guess it goes to show you that there's a lot of people out there that still have a problem with, like, motion sickness. They still feel like there needs to be something else. And so 3D rudder is in the building. And so people are going to be, well, it's not in the building. It's coming in June, and it's $120. But there's a lot of people that are actually into this. So that's kind of interesting as far as 3D rudder is concerned. Let's see. What else did Road to VR have for us? Yeah, you know, they're talking about Super Mario Odyssey and Zelda Breath of the Wild. Oculus has launched Asynchronous Space Warp 2.0. This is pretty good news. But I don't know. I was trying to find out, okay, when is this actually like, yeah, it's a great idea. Like we can see what it does here. Asynchronous space warp 1.0. You can see what that does, and you can see how 2.0 improves it quite a bit. But I was mostly interested in, okay, so when are we actually going to see this? And it says not all applications will work with asynchronous space warp 2.0 right out of the box, but many will. Oculus says that most Rift apps on the Oculus Store built on Unreal Engine 4 and Unity already provide the depth information to make asynchronous space warp 2.0 work, but those that don't will need to be updated to take advantage of the functionality. And also is that like this dash is kind of like rolling out or something. Wait, it says it isn't clear to the main branch of Oculus software or if it's still part of the public test channel. Okay, wait, they've got an update. We've confirmed that ASW 2.0 is live for all users running the latest Oculus software update. I wonder how we find out if we have the latest Oculus software update, because I wonder if that will provide improvements for certain games. So that is asynchronous space warp. It is out there. Okay, let's go ahead and check chat, see what's going on. We're already past 1 hour, I believe, so I'm probably going to have to get out of here. Let's see. Yeah, BloxyMan22 is talking about the IPD range, and this is the ideal range. This is the ideal range, and he's saying that range is incredibly small. Talking about 61.5 millimeters to, I think, 66.5 millimeters. That's the ideal, but it doesn't mean that people cannot use it if they're not in that ideal. Like I said, my IPD is 70. I used it. I didn't notice it blurry. I didn't get a headache, but I had a 10-minute demo. All right. So I do believe this is one of these things where you really need to have the headset for a couple of weeks to really know. So I would recommend people, if you're buying a Rift S and you are on either extreme, like if you're on either side of the extremes there, my recommendation, buy it at Best Buy. Buy it at Best Buy so you can go back to the store if you need to 3 weeks later and you can say, you know what, I've used this for 3 weeks, but it's starting to, I get eye strain when I try to play Skyrim for 2 hours and I'm noticing it a little bit blurry or whatever. So what you can do then is you can return it. But I really think we're going to need some time. Like me personally, I still want to get an Oculus Lenovo. I still want to get a Rift S. I really do. Just to I want to have a Rift S with my regular Rift, and I want to be able to compare and contrast them back and forth for like a couple of weeks. So I really have a good idea of what the Rift S is all about. And I'll concede the possibility I may decide, you know what, I'm keeping the Rift S and I'm going to let my Oculus Rift go. I feel like I want to have a native Oculus headset. So, for any of the native Oculus softwares. And MainFan is saying, what's so great about Best Buy? See, okay, Amazon, I don't like putting things back in packages and mailing them back. I don't know why. I like the idea that I could drive back to a store and say, here you go. Here is the physical item. I am giving it back to you. I don't return anything to Amazon. I don't think I've ever returned anything to Amazon because I've always dreaded the idea of putting it back in a box and going to some UPS store. Like, do I pay for shipping? Do they pay for shipping? Oh yeah, Micro Center and Fry's. There's that as well. Yeah, I have a Fry's in my local, in Sacramento here. We do have a Fry's. I don't like the idea of putting something back in a box and shipping it back. That's just me. But yeah, that's the thing. So, we're talking about that. But anyway, what was I doing? I was looking at some people's ideas in chat here. And Hussein X says this year should see a massive influx of VR players. Quest, Rift S, Index, Labo VR. Yeah, if we count Labo VR, Quest, Rift S, Index, HP Reverb, there are going to be a lot of new players. Like the IDC, didn't they say they expect a 54% jump A 54% bump in sales of VR headsets this year alone, and it should happen. It really should happen. So it's going to be exciting. But yeah, you know what? I'm kind of out of, not that I'm out of stuff to talk about, but my throat is very dry. So I think I'm going to go ahead and bounce out of here, and I'll save anything else I have for our show on Saturday. Okay, so let me go ahead and get back here to my standard scene. And let me go ahead and get a my little logo, and we can say bye-bye. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so anyway, guys, that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode of VR 365 Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. Glad to have you. Once again, thanks to everybody that have supported the Patreon. Our Patreon supporter of the day today was Lee Tobin. And so once again, thanks so much, Lee Tobin. Appreciate that. Absolutely appreciate everybody that has made some donations to PayPal. That is absolutely awesome. All that money is going into one kitty, and it's going to all this technology. It's all about HP Reverb. It's all about Rift S. It's all about HP Index. It's all about Oculus Quest. I'd love to get into the hardware game. I want to compete with MRTV and Sweeviver, man. I want to get into the hardware game and start doing hardware reviews, right? No, people, it's funny though, because if you do hardware reviews, you get hella views and shit, where I don't really do hardware reviews, and I think it's kind of hurt me a little bit. So maybe I should get into that. And so I'll start buying these headsets almost as rentals, playing them for a long time, and then selling them if I have to, not returning them. I will sell them and take the loss. And the loss is, it's a part of doing business. It's like a rental fee. It's like renting it, so it works out great. But I will see everybody tomorrow on Saturday. My plan is to start it at noon. I'm not sure what's going on with F Reality. I think all the clocks are back to normal now. So hopefully I won't interfere with F Reality. I don't really want to interfere with F Reality. I'd rather allow everybody to watch F Reality, and then after that they can bounce over here. So my plan is to start at 12 noon, but if that's going to cut in on F Reality, it might be like 12:30 or something. So we'll have to figure that out. But yeah, I'm out of here, and I will see everybody tomorrow. Have a wonderful Friday. Take it easy. And remember, guys, happy birthday, HTC Vive. Happy birthday to the HTC Vive. It's the 3-year anniversary. Happy birthday to the Lab. It's the 3-year anniversary of all those games that came out on April 5th. Like, think of all the big games that have an original release date of April 5th, like the old school stuff. Maybe in memory of the launch of the HTC Vive, you should take a look and remember what games came out on April 5th. Cloudlands VR Mini Golf, Cyberpong, Arizona Sunshine came a little bit later. I'm trying to think what came out, like Irrational Exuberance. That was an awesome experience. Unseen Diplomacy. Think of all the stuff that came out way back on April 5th. Maybe fire up one of those old games and see how far have we come in the last 3 years. So that would be kind of cool. But yeah, I'll see everybody tomorrow. Have a wonderful Friday. Take it easy. Later.